And good evening, everybody, at last. Welcome back to Exploring the Lord of the Rings. This is Corey Olsen, the Tolkien Professor, and this is session number 161 of Exploring the Lord of the Rings, a significant percentage of which have been covering the Council of Elrond. Tonight we get to the recruitment speech from Sauruman. So we were looking at last week. We were sort of testing out our theory about the roles of the wizards' colors as roles, and seeing if that fit with sort of the next part of their conversation, which of course was very interested in colors, being Sauruman talking about his own color, and I think that fit really, really well, especially with the kind of the dimension that lends to the many colors claim that he was making. I thought worked really, really well. So I was really happy with that. One quick announcement I wanted to make is that I wanted to remind people, if you didn't catch the videos that I made, the Signum Who We Are video and the Signum the State of the University address that I did, the first one in which I do a description of the Signum University model and what makes us different, and then in the State of the University address that I did a couple days later, where I talk about our future plans for Signum University. Those are available on YouTube. If you go to the Signum University YouTube channel, you will find a Higher Education in the 21st Century playlist, and those two are at the top of the list there. So I just wanted to make sure, because I know not everyone was able to make those sessions, so I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that they were up and available to be seen. So anyway, let us jump back into things. Sorry for being even later than usual tonight. Family issues happening unexpectedly here. But all's well, and back to wizards here. So this, of course, is Saruman's big set speech. My goal is to get through 2 slides again tonight, because I think it's a really interesting contrast, not just in content, that is in the words that he delivers, but in the demeanor with which he delivers them. I think there are some really important cues that we're getting there, which tells us a lot about Sauruman and what he's up to and what he's really sort of about here. It's very revealing, I think. So, the recruitment speech. He drew himself up then and began to declaim, as if he were making a speech long rehearsed. The elder days are gone, the middle days are passing, the younger days are beginning. The time of the elves is over, but our time is at hand, the world of men, which we must rule. But we must have power to order all things as we will, for that good which only the wise can see. And listen, Gandalf, my old friend and helper, he said, coming near and speaking now in a softer voice. I said we, for we it may be, if you will join with me. A new power is rising. Against it the old allies and policies will not avail us at all. There is no hope left in elves or dying Numenor. This then is one choice before you, before us. We may join with that power. It would be wise, Gandalf. There is hope that way. Its victory is at hand, and there will be rich reward for those that aided it. As the power grows, its proved friends will also grow, and the wise, such as you and I, may with patience come at last to direct its courses, to control it. We can bide our time. We can keep our thoughts in our hearts, deploring, maybe, evils done by the way, but approving the high and ultimate purpose, knowledge, rule, order. All the things that we have so far striven in vain to accomplish, hindered rather than helped by our weak or idle friends. There need not be, there would not be, any real change in our designs, only in our means. All right. Yeah, I agree. Mike says he's definitely been rehearsing this speech start to finish since dispatching Radagast. Definitely. So this is, Karina wants the blooper reel of him rehearsing this speech. It's true. Now, I would argue, not 100% sure, hard to prove, but but I would argue that he slips up a couple times here. I don't think that his execution of his rehearsed speech is flawless, okay? And you're right, Praise. The speech is much more eloquent here than in the truncated version that Peter Jackson gives him, definitely. And Gilganther, you also are very correct that there are lots of really red flags that send chills up your spine in this speech. Good. Yes, Karita, I agree. We. Yes, that's definitely one of them. So let's start from the beginning here. Last time I started with the last paragraph first and then went backwards, but I want to do them in order this time. He's declaiming, right, as if he's making a speech long rehearsed. So it's a practiced speech. The word declaim is a really interesting one. It gives him an air of impersonality, right? He's like a demagogue, but he's a demagogue to one person, right? There's a kind of, I don't quite want to say absurdity. That I think is a little too strong, perhaps. But it's almost absurd, right? Declaiming is something you do in front of a crowd, right? A large crowd, probably. And so if you ever catch yourself having a one-on-one conversation and you find yourself declaiming, you're probably doing it wrong, right? And that's, yeah, exactly. Gilganther says it's like getting out a teleprompter for a one-on-one conversation. Yes, it's exactly what it's like. So there's something like even before he opens his mouth, we can see a kind of disconnect here, right? If he were just making a heartfelt appeal to Gandalf, it wouldn't go like this. It wouldn't sound like this. There is something that is fake, that is not true to the whole situation about where he begins. So even before he says a word here, we can already tell there's something not quite odd, I think. Odd is not even exactly true. Yeah, Zach, I agree. Sauruman clearly does. He could really... It seems ironic to say that he could benefit from the influencing your audience course at Signum Path, because Sauruman is tolerably good at that. But he cheats. Anyway, but look at what he says now. The elder days are gone, the middle days are passing, the younger days are beginning. The time of the elves is over, but our time is at hand, the world of men, which we must rule. Now, that's a really fascinating beginning, right? Yes, the elder days are gone. The middle days, I guess, being defined loosely as the second and third ages. If the first age is the elder days, then the last two ages are the middle days, and the younger days are beginning. First of all, the phrase like the elder days, referring to the first age as the elder days, is fairly common. The converse of that, referring to the age to come, to the age of the dominion of men, which is indeed on the threshold, and everybody knows it. The elves best of all know it, that the days of the dominion of men are on the threshold. Nobody calls those the younger days. Nobody uses the obverse, right, of the elder days. The fact that he is taking that line, right, that he is characterizing it in that way, is already signals a departure from the traditional way of thinking of the wise, right? There's nobody, there's none of the good guys who does not look at the passage of the ages as a decline. It needn't be a tragic decline. It needn't be necessarily a depressing decline, but there's always a sadness, there's always a poignancy to it, and there's always a recognition that as the ages have declined, they are declining away from the beauty and the splendor of the elder days. Saruman's characterization of the age that is about to begin as the younger days, right, invites, it's a on the one hand, this is a very cunning construction, right, because it invites his audience, Gandalf, right, his audience of one, to imagine this coming age as an age of opportunity, right, like the youth of the world. It's like the world is running backwards. Instead of the world getting older, the world is getting younger, right? It's just everything is getting like stronger and more full of potential as we move forward, right? He's kind of setting the script of the ages, the script of the world of Middle-earth, of the history of Middle-earth on its head, based on what everybody accepts, like what is normal for understanding the world here. That's a really interesting move, right? And of course, then he compounds that by saying, the time of the elves is over. Yes, that's true. The time of the elves is almost completely over. And that's normally a sad thing. That's normally to almost everybody. I mean, ask Sam about the time of the elves being over, and he'll tell you what he thinks about that, right? Sam, of course, has a sensible perspective on this question. Sam is made, sad even back before he had encountered anything and done any of his growing, right? When he was still, a kid back in the Green Dragon talking to Ted Sandyman, it still, made him melancholy there. Lawrencewith says, I love that Tolkien gives Sauruman the viewpoint of chronological snobbery. Yes, Sauruman does sound like, he's one of the only people who is out of sync with this perception, with the standard Middle-earth perception of the passing of time, the declining of the ages, and the direction that things are going. Belongsmond, you're right. Saruman does kind of sound like a man on the side of industry and technology. And I said he's almost one of the only ones that we hear talking like this, because we will hear others, but those others that we will hear are the ones who have been deluded by Saruman, right? It's from people like Ted Sandyman, briefly, that we will hear such, other similar ideas about, the age of new possibility that is opening up before them. But then, of course, it's not just that he says the time of elves is over as if with relief, but then he adds, our time is at hand. Just stopping there for a second. The time of the elves is over, but our time is at hand. Note the implication there, as if the elves have been in their way, like in the way of the wizards, right? Like, oh, finally, now, the time of the elves is over. And I'm going to say, at last, am I right? I mean, boy, have they been a hindrance to what we've been trying to do. I mean, that's almost the implication of what Saruman is saying there. And again, we can see I find this as a rhetorical approach very interesting, right? Because he is revealing his perspective here quite openly, or rather he is displaying, I should say, the difference between his framework and his assumptions and not just Gandalf's, but like most of the other good guys' perspective very, very quickly. And in ways that are going to be super obvious, right? He's really kind of flaunting that. And I'm wondering what he's hoping to accomplish there, right? He's already done, a goatee stroking speech in the previous passage, right? He's already, I don't know that he's actually literally waxed his mustache, but it was a pretty waxed mustache speech that he gave, the Saruman of many colors, Radagast the Fool. So it's not exactly like he's trying to keep the fact that he is, going in the evil overlord direction, that he's been taking some, some online evil overlord courses. I guess actually he's literally been taking, remote learning evil overlord courses, come to think of it. Anyway, it's not like he's exactly, going to be hiding that at this point. But he really, he really owns it. Right. And that's it's interesting in the context of a speech long rehearsed. Right. I mean, this is a speech that he has practiced, that he, what is his goal here? Because this is the question that I can't help but ask right away. Like after the first, 3 sentences, I can't help but ask, does he really intend to convince Gandalf here? Does he think, I mean, what's the purpose of this rehearsed speech? Is it really to convince Gandalf? Is that what he hopes for? Does he have earnest and sanguine hopes of talking Gandalf around to his point of view? It's possible that he does. I mean, he is very arrogant, right? He does have a very high opinion of his abilities, and the foremost of his abilities is to bring people around to his point of view. So it's very possible that he has actually convinced himself of that. But he's taking an extremely direct approach at that here. It sounds to me as if he is kind of trying to, right, exactly. As Prey says, he's so convincing, he's convinced himself. That's what I sort of wonder as well. Yeah, so I'm interested. Yeah, it's interesting. Let's see. Right, Lisa says to hear himself, to be able to say to himself, I was willing to share. If Gandalf doesn't listen, it's not my fault. Perhaps, like he's gonna officially lay it out, right? And I mean, he will say later that he didn't expect Gandalf to show wisdom, right? But again, in which case, so what was the point, right? Again, perhaps it is mostly just to hear himself. But that's one of the things that I want to be looking at, not just here in this passage, but in the passage to come as well, because it does seem that it's related to that there as well. But of course, then I didn't quite get to the end of that sentence. The time of the elves is over, but our time is at hand. The world of men, which we must rule. Which we must rule. What a fascinating statement at the end of that sentence, right? That the world of the dominion of men is coming is well known. But you see what he's done there? It's really quite clever. He's taken the phrase, like this, now has come the dominion of men. That's exactly what it's what everybody calls it, right? So what does he do? He twists the name, right? The time of the dominion of men. That time when men need to be dominated? Yeah, that one, right? Like, it is going to be the dominion of men, not when men have dominion, but when we must have dominion over men. And that is actually kind of cool, right? I mean, that's actually kind of fun. It's not good, but it's kind of cool. Gilganthur, I agree. The tone that he uses, we must rule, without saying why. He just assumes that it's obvious, right? Like, clearly. And exactly, Gilganthur, that's just what I was thinking. That he is seeming to imply, in the same way in which from the beginning of this speech, he has just turned all the assumptions on their heads. He's not making an argument for it, right? He's not saying, let me try to convince you of how we need to look at this whole decline of the ages things from a new angle, right? Let's take a fresh view of this whole situation, right? He's not making an argument like that. What he's doing is he's delivering the whole thing from this different framework from the beginning. And that is the clearest revelation of the framework that he's using. And that framework is, we wizards have a job, right? Gandalf has said already, I liked white better, right? That is, you had a job, Sauruman. Now, on the one hand, you're claiming to do everybody's job. You're claiming to be Sauruman of many colors. You are all the colors, right? You are the one who is the master of all things. Okay, whatever, right? but you had a job and you're not doing that job, right? So in a sense, his opening gambit here responds to that. The implicit rhetorical question which Saruman's framework here asks is, what is our job exactly? What is the role of the wizards? Why have we wizards come to Middle-earth? And the answer, when you really stop to think about it, is obvious, right? We look around Middle-earth and what do we see? We see Middle-earth in a state of decline, right? Are we going to just sit back and let that happen, right? We come here and we see the elder days, of course, they were gone before we came, right? And the middle days were passing. They were more than halfway gone before we even showed up, right? And we see the middle days passing by. What have we come for? Obviously, but to prepare for the younger days, right? We have come in time to lay the foundations for the leadership of this world as it enters into this new period of youth and growth and exciting opportunity that lies before it. It is down to us to reverse this trend of decline, right? And to build a brilliant new future, right? The time of the elves is over. Maybe we can agree to disagree on whether they accomplished anything of any significance, but that's not what matters right now. What matters is their time is over, our time is at hand. Since they're passing away, they're the ones who've been ruling the shop here, right? And we see the state that they're leaving it in, right? But anyway, as I said, I wouldn't talk about that. So anyway, but they're gone, right? And we are taking over. We have been left, we are the heirs of the world, right? After the elves leave, right? The world of men. Which, as Goganthier says, obviously, we must rule, right? I mean, that's a given, right? It's clearly what we were sent here to do. By simply adopting this without explaining it, without justifying it, right? By simply adopting this framework, he is attempting to sort of, you know, I don't know, kind of like wrong foot Gandalf. What position does Gandalf have to say like, well, but I thought that's not what our job was, right? Anyway, it's a really interesting move that he makes here, and very revealing of his way of thinking, right? But we must have power to order all things as we will, for that good which only the wise can see. Again, obviously we have to rule, but you know what? Like, we need resources, right? We need resources. See, El Guapo, that's exactly it, right? He says it's quite a thing to say right after saying that they must rule the world of men. You could ask El Guapo, right? Like, well, okay, like, where's the must? If you don't already have the power, you know, if you're not already in that position, then where does the must come in? Right? As far as the ruling the world of men, having like, from whence cometh the imperative? If in fact you don't yet have the wherewithal to rule the thing, but yeah. Fourth Dauntless, exactly. It says, this is the answer to the why question. Saruman and Gandalf are going to be philosopher kings. Exactly, Fourth Dauntless. It's a very enlightened vision of the future. It really is, right? Because you see, exactly as Fourth Dauntless is suggesting, only the wise can see the good that can be achieved through the ordering of the way. If they can but bring a kind of order to the world that has sadly never been available, right? I mean, like, the world has been many things. Orderly has never been one of them, right? But we can see these good ends, right? We know the way that we should shape things for everybody's good, for everybody's best interest, right? They don't know what they want. We know what's best for them. And so we can help to shape things and to order things. But we need power in order to do this, right? And again, the unstated comment there is, look, you know, men are annoying, right? They're ornery and they're froward, and it's not going to be simple, right? We have to have we have the right, because we are the wise, right? We have the imperative to rule. But it's going to take some force. We're going to need actual power in order to compel, because only compulsion is going to really enable the order that's going to enable, us to help the younger days to achieve their fullest potential, obviously. So, we're going to need some power in order to do that. Yeah, exactly, Lauren Swift. I do think that he is implying, he's being fairly indirect about it still, but I do think that he is implying that it would be for the good, not just for the good of men. I mean, I think he does, I think, imply that it's going to be for the good of men. And you're absolutely right. Power isn't his goal, right? Helping the race of men is the goal. The ideals of the wise, this is the goal, right? The power is only the obviously necessary means. Without that, you couldn't possibly bring about the state that you need to bring about. So that's what, that's what you're, that's clearly what needs to happen. But of course, Lauren Swift, there's also more than that as well, right? That's true. But in addition, it's not only for the good of men, because men aren't the whole point, right? Remember again the frame that he began with. The elder days are passing, the elder days are gone, the middle days are passing, the younger days are beginning, right? It's not only for the good of human beings, either as a species or as individuals, right? It's for the good of the age, right? I suspect that Sauruman would say, it's not just that you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet, right? That if you have to, abrogate some people's freedoms and liberties, and if you have to, crossbreed some people with orcish abominations and stuff, look, like some things are necessary in order to achieve these great ends. So it's not just that he would say like some, the good of some must be sacrificed to the good of the many. I don't think that he would just say that. I think that he would also say further, you know what? It may be that men as a whole will be less happy. But if that brings about the great and glorious age of the future, right? Then it's worth it. Right? It's not all about men. Men aren't the whole story, right? They are the central figures of the age to come, and therefore must be ruled, because only by ruling them are we going to be able to bring about the age that we want to bring about. Yeah. Lupilia says, as someone from a former Soviet Union country, there were all sorts of arguments about how anti-communist The Lord of the Rings was, and it was banned literature in Czechoslovakia. I can understand how people would think that. Yes. I understand. I can perceive that. Yeah. Now I think that communism is not ultimately what it's primarily against, but I can understand how communist leaders might be uncomfortable with it nevertheless. Okay. So yeah, that good which only the wise can see. And again, that's where I'm talking about. Again, no, he doesn't even say like for their own good, for the good of people, right? For the blessing of mankind or anything like that, right? That good which only the wise can see. And that good, that's a serious abstraction, right? That things should be good. And it may well be, that the whole, in a sense, the whole race of men needs to be suppressed in some way, from Saruman's perspective, in order to bring about that good. That if that good that he foresees, that he anticipates, that he desires, can only be brought about by the total subjugation of the race of men, even enslavement of the world of men. Again, it's not to say that he's really saying, and one of the reasons I'm emphasizing this, I thought that what Jackson did in the films, the way in which he made Saruman's appeal into like an anti-human thing explicitly, right? Like that he was making war on the world of men entirely, despite the fact that he was fighting, he was like recruiting the Dunlendings to sign on to that for some reason. But anyway, the sort of racial dimension that they gave to Saruman in the films was interesting, and I thought it worked pretty well. But it's kind of it's clumsy. If when we come to the books, we allow that mode to kind of infect, then we won't see Saruman's whole point. He's not pro-human. He's not anti-human. His perspective is different from that. Yeah, Marielle is exactly right. Marielle, jumping ahead a little rashly, was saying, jumping ahead to what we know he'll do to Isengard. His goal isn't to make life bountiful and flourishing. It's to strip life of its messy disorder and willfulness and replace it with a regimented, logical order of machinery. Something like that. Yeah, exactly. As Emily says, he's not pro-human or anti-human. He's pro-Saruman, ultimately. Yes. Yeah, and Sam, I can agree with that he wants to impose the goals of his post as the White onto everyone in the world, regardless of the cost. Yeah. Certainly his sort of ideals. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, JJ opines that if someone had given Saruman a copy of Minecraft to fill his time with, he might not have gotten into so much mischief. Yeah, I can see the argument there. Okay, anyway, next paragraph. This is when he changes modes, right? "And listen, Gandalf, my old friend and helper," he said, coming near and speaking now in a softer voice. So he's not declaiming anymore. Now, I saw that there were some discussions from earlier on as to whether or not the whole speech was recited or just the first part. Like whether he'd rehearsed the whole thing. Like, to what extent is he improvising this second part of the speech? So let's see what we think about that. Certainly that first statement sounds to me very rehearsed. "Listen, Gandalf, my old friend and helper." The tonal shift from his previous speeches, like the scorn with which he was speaking of Gandalf the Grey, right, earlier on. "Here you shall remain and cease from wandering, and now, my old friend and helper." Again, I think that he has, and even helper, right? He was just accusing Gandalf of never seeking help, right? "The thought is late in coming to you." And now he's calling him my old friend and helper, when again, helper is kind of the one thing that he's never actually been. But anyway, I think that this is... My argument would be, my reading of that would be that he had, I believe that he had rehearsed this transition. He had rehearsed this transition. What he had said before, like what he said in the previous couple passages, was spontaneous in the moment. And it did kind of blow his transition, right? I mean, like there is a clear disjunction between what he just said to Gandalf in a more honest moment and what he's saying to Gandalf here in this pre-rehearsed transition. But again, I think that just sort of shows the obviousness, like the obvious gap between his real thoughts and intentions and what he's actually saying in his pre-rehearsed speech here. Yeah, good. Sarah, Vermont Hobbit says, "Since this is repeated by Gandalf, can't we assume that it sounded more persuasive in person? I assume Gandalf isn't trying to replicate Saruman's voice." Well, certainly not the effect of Saruman's voice. I think that Gandalf is, so certainly, Sarah, we could ask, at the council, how much justice is Gandalf doing to the rehearsed speech of Saruman? This passage in particular, it sounds like he is showing some care to repeat Saruman's words as closely as he can. And I think that he's doing that. I think that the reason that he is doing this is it saves him a very great deal of time, right? As we will see, the discussion that follows his story about Saruman is going to focus on the ring and what they do on the ring. He and Elrond know this is the true agenda of the meeting, right? And so they're going to be coming back to let's move forward the action item of this meeting, right? Before poor Bilbo dies of starvation. So they know. So in other words, they're not going to spend a whole lot of time going through what's up with Saruman. By accurately delivering Saruman's words, the people in his audience hear, doing it as he's doing it, right? I mean, he's not, the effect of Saruman's voice is not there at all, right? So just repeating Saruman's words in this totally different context of the Council of Elrond, Galdor, Glorfindel, Aragorn, everyone's going to be able to, like, all these red flags that we're hearing, all of this alarming and revealing stuff that shows how Saruman actually looks at things and the direction that his thought is taking. He's accomplishing a very concise report on those things without having to spell it out, right? In it, the people for whom it is important for them to know, like Galdor, who asked in the first place, what about Saruman? What are his counsels? What's up with him? They will know what's up with him, right? They will be able to obviously get the basic facts of the story, but they will be able to glean a great deal more than the basic facts from the speeches that they're hearing. So that's why I believe that Gandalf's words here are as close as he can make them to a replication of Saruman's speeches. And it's true, heebie-jeebie, that Gandalf may have been being theatrical. He is certainly not above a theatrical approach. And so certainly milking the drama of the story for the sake of the drama of the story, I think, is not uninvolved in Gandalf's motivations here as well. Now, GDC, I agree with you. The last thing Gandalf wants is somebody saying, gosh, maybe Saruman has a point, right? He's not actually trying to convince them of Saruman's point of view. But he does want them to know what Saruman's point of view is. That's really important. As Praise says, otherwise they might ask, like, what makes you think he thought that, right? And he does not want to have a debate and discussion about Saruman. Saruman is not, I mean, it's important that everybody knows what's up with Saruman, but there's nothing they need to do about Saruman right now. He is not the action item on the agenda here, and they need to clear it away to some extent. Anyway, okay. Exactly, Green Great Dragon. That's our job. Exactly right. Right, Sam's synopsis. Then Saruman said some insensitive things. Then I contradicted him. Then he imprisoned me. Yes. I mean, again, like, because, I mean, Sam, you're right. He could accomplish his goal by saying, so I went down to Saruman, and would you believe he, tried to convince me that we should side with Sauron. And when I said no, he imprisoned me. And then I saw that he was breeding orcs and everything and all manner of sketchy things going on in Isengard after that. That would have been enough to convey the point, right? But he doesn't just convey the point, right? He does explain things more. He does demonstrate things more clearly. And I think that that's I think that's important. I think that that's really interesting how he does that. And again, I say it's concise. He tells a pretty long story. But again, by telling the whole story up front, he knows they're going to have questions. He knows it's not going to be enough just to drop a bomb like that. Oh, by the way, Saruman is a traitor and he's now allied with Sauron. But anyway, right? I mean, he knows that he can't do that. So he gives a full explanation and then they can move on. And yes, Angrist, you're right. Saruman's reputation is too great to be destroyed without proof. What are the proofs? Is a question that's already been asked of him about the ring. If he just said, so turns out Saruman's a traitor, so whatever, let's forget about him, somebody might ask for the proofs. And so, yes, he's providing them without even being asked. Yes. Okay. Shortcuts lead to long debates for Thoughtless. Absolutely. Okay. Anyway, so back to his transition and what he transitions to. Listen, Gandalf, my old friend and helper, he says in a friendly and convivial way, coming near and speaking now in a softer voice. He's no longer declaiming, right? This is now personal. And if, of course, it's not a bad rhetorical move for Saruman to begin in declamation mode and then shift to the more personal mode, right? As if now he is framing the overall situation, right, in that declamation. But now he's letting Gandalf into an insider insight on things, right? But this is between you and me, Gandalf. Of course, it was all between the two of them because they're the only ones in the room. But you see what I mean, right? It's like now he is kind of with his speech and body language recontextualizing what he is about to say as a more private communication, right? A more secret, but yeah. Carrie the One says it's almost like a bad cop, good cop routine. Almost. I mean, that kind of rhetorical shift can be, I think, really effective. Yes, confiding in a colleague, Angrist. That's a really good way to like they're gonna talk about this in camera, right? Like you and I, my old friend and helper, right? We understand these things, right? We have we can see these things the way that they really are. Bricktails, exactly. The fatal seduction of the inner ring. Bricktails, of course, I assume you're thinking of C.S. Lewis's essay or the speech that he gave on that topic, by that title, the inner ring. Absolutely. Okay. I said we, for we it may be, if you will join with me. A new power is rising. Against it, the old allies and policies will not avail us at all. There is no hope left in elves or dying Numenor. This is one choice before you, before us. We may join with that power. It would be wise, Gandalf. There is hope that way. Its victory is at hand, and there will be rich reward for those that aided it. As the power grows, its proved friends will also grow, and the wise, such as you and I, may with patience come at last to direct its courses. So, let's stop before that. Okay. All right. We it may be. Now, I agree with Carita. The one that I think is definitely a slip there, and I really do think it's not a rhetorical effect. I think it's a slip. There is one choice before you, before us. I think that's a slip. He speaks through the rest, and I say that because it is inconsistent. The before us is the thing that is consistent with everything else there, right? We may join with that. We may join with that power. A possibility would be for you and I to come together as a team and join together, right? Why don't we do that? Is his whole proposition to Gandalf here, right? By saying there is one choice before you, what he is betraying is the fact that he's already made his choice, right? And that doesn't fit with the rest of the things that he's saying there. That's why I think that that's a slip. he should have just said, there is then one choice before us. This then is one choice before us. We may join with that power. The we is the whole pitch, right? I said we, for we it may be, if you will join with me. Let's go together. Let's do this together. And then to speak as if it's only his before you, before us. Now, there is another reading. It's possible that it's not a slip. I mean, you could say, because he is saying, like, he is presenting a choice to Gandalf, right? You could say that his argument is, the way that he's trying to frame that is, this is your choice. And if you make the choice, then it won't just be you, it'll be us, right? And then we may join that with that power. I think that that's a possible reading. I still incline towards a slip there, but I think it's possible to read it the other way. I don't want to rule that out. A new power is, and we will rule the galaxy as father and son. Exactly, Aranas. Now, Lincoln, that is precisely the question, which is to me the most puzzling element of his entire speech. Having carefully crafted this speech and rehearsed this speech, he knows that the biggest challenge, right, is, it's going to take a pretty large spoonful of sugar, right, to help the so let's join Sauron's side pill go down, right? I mean, like, that's going to take a large dollop of honey. So how is he going to handle that? How is he going to contextualize that? In what way can you contextualize? So Gandalf, like, I'm the White Wizard, right? And you know that, like, in theory, my job is to be the enemy of Sauron, and I'm supposed to be studying him to help everybody defeat him. Well, new plan. How about we join him instead? Hear me out, right? I mean, that's a tough sell. That's going to be a really tough sell to Gandalf. Very, very tricky. So, a new power is rising. Lincoln's question was, in what sense is Sauron a new power? I mean, an old power is rising again, or has risen again, right? But it's really weird. So, Belancsmond, I really like, and Mike both were suggesting, okay, what if what he's doing here is trying to shift things? He is shifting, as Matt was pointing out, the shift from talking about Sauron as the enemy, capital E, like, everybody else does, all the other good guys anyway, and the way that Sauron starts talking about the power, right, is an important rhetorical shift. I certainly agree with that. First of all, it's an interesting choice, just saying the power, characterizing him as the power. Right. Remember, he's already set up for this. The world of men, which we must rule, but we must have power. Power to order all things as we will. So the question is, what resource are we going to be able to draw upon, right? Obviously, the world of men is coming. Everybody knows that. Obviously, we need to rule that world. Again, that's a given. Obviously, we're going to need to harness some kind of power source in order for us to have the ability to rule the world like it needs to be ruled. So where can we find a source of power that could be properly harnessed in order to bring about this rule that we see? A power is rising, right? Capital P, power is rising. There's a difference, of course, between the lowercase p of the first paragraph and the uppercase P of the second paragraph. But there's clearly, a correspondence in terms there, right? And by presenting the situation this way, by depersonalizing Sauron, right? He's not talking about a person. Notice he's not talking about, he said very little that even suggests a person or allying with a person, right? A new power is rising. Against it, the old allies and policies will not avail us at all. There is no help in elves or dying Numenor. We may join with that power. It would be wise. There is hope that way. Its victory is at hand, the victory of the power, and there will be rich reward for those that aided it. That is the first place where it sounds like the power has any kind of personality, any kind of will at all, right? I mean, it sounds like, he's struck an artesian flow of some kind of power somewhere, right? He's speaking of it with that kind of impersonality, and exactly the it, Mike, is I think really important there. So rich reward, though. Reward for those that aided it. That suggests, right? It implies that if the power is going to reward people who aided the power, it has agency now, and that's the first glimpse of agency of the power itself. The first glimpse of kind of personality for it. And yet there's still a little bit of at least potential. There's still a lot of vagueness involved with it. And I'm coming back to the point that Mike and Balangsman were making. The question isn't the power doesn't necessarily have to be Sauron, right? The power could be Saruman himself. He is trying to blunt the horror of his proposal with abstraction for Dauntless. I absolutely believe that. But I think that he is speaking with vagueness for another reason. It's not just because he doesn't want to say the S word, right? And make it overt. Because again, it's not like he's going to fool Gandalf, right? It's not like he's going to give this speech about the new power and Gandalf's going to be like, really? There's a new power? That's great. Wow. This sounds really excellent. And great. So, I mean, honestly, I can't sign up soon enough, Saruman. This is so exciting. I'm so glad there's a powerful new ally who's going to help us to solve all of our problems. Great. And then, later on, Gandalf's going to be like, what? It's Sauron, right? Like, there's no way that Saruman is imagining that that's the effect that he's going to bring about, right? So I don't think that his circumlocutions are designed actually to deceive Gandalf about the identity of, the ally that he's talking about there. Yeah, so now for Dauntless, I agree. It's not quite as simple as that. It's not quite as simple as he's saying, like, a new power is rising, leading up to a reveal, and it's me, right? It's not quite like that. It's almost like that in a sense, but that's too simple. Because you're right, it doesn't work. There are several things in his speech that doesn't exactly work that way. But as I said, so I go back to the rhetorical effect of his depersonalization of Sauron, right? Of the power here. He's not just calling him the power, the power who shall remain nameless, because he is shy about saying the name, or embarrassed or ashamed to say the name. It's not that, right? There is an extra effect of the vagueness, right? The power in question is Sauron's power, but that's a kind of accident. It doesn't have to stay with him, or rather, Yes. Okay. Sauron has power. So one way of looking at this, if we think of this for a second as just a straight join the dark side recruitment speech, right? Just straight up, what Saruman means, really genuinely means, is I think Sauron's going to win, so let's join him, right? If that were all the purport of Saruman's speech, it would still... Here is what the depersonalization would mean. Again, it still wouldn't just be, but I don't want to say the S word, right? He has said, we must have power. And behold, Sauron has power. Does he support Sauron? He does not support Sauron. Does he think that Gandalf should support Sauron? Goodness, no. What should they, the two of them, support? The power. Right? There is power there, power to be harnessed. Power that there is a resource available to them, and they could avail themselves of that resource. And that's how he goes on to talk about it, right? As the power grows, so this is a power that is on the rise, unlike the elves and everything else on dying Numenor. The power is on the rise. Not Sauron. The power is on the rise. Right? Sauron is the one currently controlling the power, right? But anyway, the power is growing, and that's good, right? A resource which is on the upward trend. Fantastic, right? That makes it all the more useful for us to ally ourselves with it. Well, there is hope that way. What's the phrase he's used? Join with. We may join with that power. Again, not with Sauron, with the power. What's joined with the power? It would be wise. Think it through. Don't give me a knee-jerk, but he's evil reaction. Think it through, Gandalf. There is hope that way. Its victory is at hand. It's gonna win, right? This power is on the rise. So, the wise, such as you and I, may, with patience, come at last to direct its courses, to control it. To control Sauron? That they're gonna have Sauron dancing on their strings? No, the power, right? Sauron currently controls the power, but you know what? We might come to direct its courses and to control the power. There's a model. There's a model for this, right? Sauron did this once. Sauron did this with Numenor. And he didn't even need all that much patience, right? He could not fight the power. There was once, Sauron once was confronted by a power that was growing, whose victory was at hand. There was rich reward for those that aided it. And with patience, he came at last to direct its courses and to control it. Right? So, Sauron himself did it once. They surely could do the same thing again, right? We can bide our time. We can keep our thoughts in our hearts, deploring maybe evils done by the way, but approving the high and ultimate purpose, knowledge, rule, order. All the things that we have so far striven in vain to accomplish, hindered rather than helped by our weak or idle friends. Our resources have been abysmal, right? I mean, it is, we are underfunded, we are understaffed, we cannot accomplish our high and ultimate purpose, but with not the help of the power. By harnessing this power, we will be able to do this. So again, this is not a, right, Frumius Bujum says he's going to worm-tongue Sauron. Hey, yeah, why not? Again, that's what Sauron did, right? Sauron totally worm-tongued Ar-Pharazôn, so yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Now, Trifle says the thought of, though the idea of playing the treacherous advisor role well enough to fool the one who's easily Middle-earth trope codifier of the role is sheer hubris. Sure, yeah, absolutely. I mean, to out Sauron is going to be a trick. But it's not impossible. It's totally not impossible, right? And here's the reason it's not impossible. Sauron's not what he was, Sauron's in decline too. He is. I mean, his strength is great, but it's not as great as it was before. And, he had the whole Numenor incident, which was embarrassing. And his person is limited. I mean, his strength is greatly reduced because of the whole Ring of Power thing, and he doesn't have it. So, Sauron isn't what he was. I think we could pull this off. I totally think that we could pull this off. So even in as much as this is only a straight up recruitment speech, a join the dark side speech, it is still not exactly a let's be friends with Sauron speech. It's not, right? We are going to exploit Sauron. That's what we're going to do. Right? We're going to Sauron, right? We're going to worm-tongue Sauron. I like the worm-tongue verb better. We're going to worm-tongue Sauron, and we're going to end up in control of things. Right? JJ says, Gandalf, it can totally work. I've got a guy already doing it in Rohan. I mean, no, never mind. Forget about that. Right? Exactly. The prototype is in operation already, right? No problem. We're just going to roll it out on a larger scale. Yeah, exactly. So, but I've been saying that is if this is a straight up recruitment, join the dark side speech. But I think there's more to it as well. I agree with Fourth Dauntless that it's too simplistic merely to say the power, the new power, that power equals Saruman himself, right? That he's actually talking about himself the whole time. That's too simplistic. But I also don't think that Mike and Balancmond are wrong either. And this, I think, is another effect of speaking of the power in these depersonalized senses. It's not only that Sauron is a power who can be exploited. If we think of him less as an enemy and more as a natural resource, right? Again, that's one way, and I think the primary way that the speech needs to be understood. But I do think that there's a second meaning to it, that there's a second significance to the depersonalization of the power. It could become, it is not him yet, right? But it could become him. And that's, of course, where he's headed in a minute. It could become him. He could become the power. He could not just, with patience, come at last to direct its courses and to control it. He could have the power himself. And that gives what he is saying to Gandalf about Sauron, because inasmuch as the current power does have a will, right, to reward those that aided it, to have proved friends, right? I mean, those things do suggest there's a power behind, there's a person behind the power, right? A will behind the power. Inasmuch as he is talking about those things there of Sauron, and I think he is explicitly, or not explicitly, implicitly, they have a second meaning, right? Should the power pass to Saruman, those things would be just as true of him, right? If he were to become the power, were to have the power in his own hand, then his proved friends will grow, and there will be rich reward for those that aid him. In other words, the other reason for talking about the power as a depersonalized thing is that it emphasizes the fact that the power is transferable. it's not about Sauron himself. He does happen to have the power now, but I could have it. It could pass to me. And if it passed to me, then all of these things would be true. It's not true yet. He's not posing in that way yet. But is that in his mind? Does that, does that come into, does that inform what he's saying here? Yes. I do think that is, that there is that kind of second overlay, over his speech. And it's another reason why he's so depersonalized about it. Yes, exactly. And yes, JJ, you're right. Sauron's power, capital P, also exists in a convenient carrying package that anyone can take hold of. Yes. It can in fact be delivered. So that is precisely right. The idea of Sauron's power being readily transferable and being something that is even in that sense portable, it's perfectly true, right? It is in fact perfectly true. Yeah, no, I agree, Fourth Dauntless. I don't think Saruman would consider himself bound by this hypothetical if he got hold of the ring. No, but again, it is an extra dimension on his little recruitment speech here. I can't go away without thinking at all about what he reveals about the high and ultimate purpose. Knowledge, rule, order. That is the high and ultimate purpose. That is the good which only the wise can see, presumably, right? Knowledge, rule, and order. That everything should be just so, just as I deem it should be. It starts with knowledge, right? And Trifle, I agree. It is really interesting that he says knowledge and not wisdom. Wisdom is what he's been emphasizing to this point, right? Knowledge is a really interesting word choice there. Knowledge, rule, order. Zach, I agree with you. Zach says, if this were a Song of Ice and Fire, those would be great house words. Yeah. House Sauruman, knowledge, rule, order. Yeah, Mad Violinist, I think it's an interesting way to think about it. Knowledge, he says, is a resource to be gathered. Wisdom is intrinsic, like you have it or you don't, right? Knowledge can be gained. Knowledge can be accumulated. It's there for a purpose. Wisdom is a prerequisite, perhaps, whereas knowledge is a purpose. The purpose is to achieve knowledge. Now, knowledge itself presumably also has a purpose, but he's listing these things, singular mind, the high and ultimate purpose, which seems to be threefold, right? This is a tripartite ultimate purpose, but the three of them together form the singular purpose, ultimate purpose. So knowledge is not a means, it's an end. Wisdom, to rephrase what you were saying, Chris, wisdom is a means, not an end in that sense, right? Knowledge is an end, apparently. And yes, Aslan's Compass, I do think that means that fools are doomed to remain fools. Absolutely. And Mad Violinist, I suspect you're right that Saruman would hate Signum. Yeah, I agree. Too much of this talk of application, right? Exactly. Good. Sorry, who was that? Was just saying. Sorry, I lost it. There it is. Green Great Dragon. Hence, it's not the counsel of the knowing; it's the counsel of the wise. Right? Again, as the sort of that's the means. Wisdom helps you do things. JJ, I agree. We could use that as a slogan, right? Saruman would disapprove of us. Yeah. That's there's a certain demographic to whom that would convey something important, I think. But anyway, okay. So knowledge is an end, rule is an end, and order is an end, right? And of course, none of those things are bad things. And I think in Tolkien's world, that's perfectly clear. Knowledge is not bad. Rule is not bad. Order is not bad. None of those things are bad, right? Kings bring order. Kings bring rule and order. And, places prosper and happiness flowers when there is good rule. That is very clear, right? It's clear from Gondor. It's clear from the greater Arnor region, right? Been to Fornos lately. I mean, it's, rule and order are good things. Knowledge is a good thing. What he is putting as the high and ultimate purpose, though, are really things which are only means, not ends at all. Knowledge can't be an end in itself, or what's the point of it? Rule can't be an end in itself if your ultimate purpose is merely rule. What's the point? Right? What, who benefits from that? Well, you, the ruler, right? Order isn't the end, it's the means. So when he says at the end, of course, the final most revealing statement, there would not be any real change in our designs, only in our means. This is, of course, as several of you were pointing out earlier, one of the most explicit, let's just, ignore the means for the sake of the ends speeches that we get in all of the Lord of the Rings. It is very clear that considering disregarding the means and thinking only of the ends, being willing to sacrifice means for the sake of achieving a noble end is something that, of which Tolkien strongly disapproves, or of which, against which Tolkien cautions very strongly. Saruman's speech here is one of the most explicit evidences of that. Yeah, exactly. It's clear, though, that it's not only that he is willing to sacrifice. His issues with means and ends don't only stem from the fact that he is willing to prioritize ends over means and to deplore evils done by the way, but approve the high and ultimate purpose, right? That as long as it's all done for a good end, then it doesn't matter what's done along the way. I love how he uses the word deplore. I kind of want to pull out I do not think that word means what you think it means, right? That if you deplore the evils that are done by the way, you don't sit back and watch them done, right? If you do, in fact, deplore the evils, then you don't let them happen, period. If you are willing to let it slide because you think the ends are good, then, maybe you find it distasteful or whatever, but deploring is not what you're doing, right? It's just not. Now, I agree that deplore is a judgment, not an action. I agree. But my point is, if you genuinely deplore an evil and don't take action, then you don't genuinely deplore it. Like it's window dressing at that point. It's not really. But again, it's not only that he's willing to overlook the means, that he's urging Gandalf to take the wise course of not getting bogged down in the means, but focusing instead on the ends. And that always seems like wisdom. I mean, and this is, one of those big life application things, right? It is very true. Tolkien is exactly right about this. It will very often look like wisdom to ignore the means in order to achieve the ends, right? As long as your ends are good, as long as you believe in the ends, as long as you think that they are good and right and will bring about so many wonderful and beautiful things, that you can, even if you deplore them in your heart, you keep it to yourself, and because that good end is more important. You don't, it always looks like wisdom. It always seems the wisest course of action. And to object to the means, to stand up and say, no, I don't care. I'm going to I'm going to risk the end. I'm going to stand in the way, even though it means that this good end that you're aiming for might not be achieved, right? I'm going to risk undermining the end for the sake of merely stopping an incidental evil along the way. That looks foolish, right? You got to look at the big picture. You got to be smarter than that, right? You've got to think bigger. Saruman, what Saruman says is something that many have felt very strongly at many points. It seems like wisdom to do that. And it seems like folly not to. But that is one of the big lessons here. And again, one of the ways in which I think that he sort of reveals this most clearly is that ultimate purpose. We see that he isn't only shifting the value of means versus ends in the sense of prioritizing ends over means. He is also putting what really are means as ends instead. He has no real ends. And that, I think, is also very wise on Tolkien's part. That your means become your ends if you succumb to that way of wisdom. In the end, I'm not convinced that there is a real difference between means and ends, not in the kind of way that Sauruman is suggesting here, right? But anyway, getting into deep personal applications here, but this is a really important kind of moral moment in Tolkien's world here. Right. Forthnala says, you could argue that order is the end to which knowledge and rule would be pointed. Right. So if you're imagining the high and ultimate purpose, so Forthnala, am I understanding you correctly? You're suggesting that we read his three words there, not as a tripartite purpose in itself, but as a kind of flowchart, right? Like this is Saruman's like corporate slogo. Slogo? How about that? That's a good word. Slogan and logo. It's a slogo. I like it. Hey, I invented a word accidentally. Yeah, it's his corporate slogan, right? Knowledge leads to rule, which leads to order, right? That's interesting. That's an interesting way to think about them. Remember our motto: knowledge, then rule, then order. Green Great Dragon says Slogo Baggins needs to be a name. Right. Yeah. Bilbo and Frodo's, corporate second cousin, Slogo, the marketing exec for the West Farthing. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. However, I would still say, even if for Dauntless we think of those three words in that way, not as kind of the three static pillars of the ultimate purpose, right? But rather a progression towards the ultimate purpose. It still puts order as the final purpose. And that still seems a means and not an end. I still maintain that order itself is clearly a means and not an end. I know people, and I love some of them very, very much, for whom you might almost mistake order for an end instead of a means. That everything should be in its right place is an end rather than a means. So I don't want to speak with any prejudice against that point of view, perhaps. But I still say, if that's the ultimate purpose, right? If that's the ultimate purpose, and I don't think that even the dear people of whom I am thinking, whom I love very much, and who are large proponents of order, I don't think that even they would say that that's the ultimate purpose, right? I think that even they would say that order serves a purpose, like peace of mind and happiness and efficiency of being able to accomplish other things. Again, it's still a means, right? Even if it's not the ultimate means. Am I defending messy bedrooms? Yes. It's not my mother I'm primarily thinking of here. But anyway, I'm not gonna get more personal and say something I will regret into the public record. What I'm saying is, order's not an end, and I don't think that even people who are most committed to the concept of order in their personal lives, even they would say that it is the ultimate purpose. But Rowan, that's a really important point. Melkor, right? The ultimate sort of moving force for evil in Middle Earth is very much associated with chaos, right? With the word that Tolkien used several times in his later writings. We were just talking about this in our Morgoth's Ring discussion last Wednesday. We'll be finishing that up this Wednesday. Is nihilism, right? That he's just like, he's about the destruction, simple destruction of everything. So yes, he is, in that sense, has devolved into essentially a sort of a principle for chaos. But I do agree, Ambrosius Aurelianus, that Sauron is definitely more orderly than Morgoth was. He doesn't share that, but also Ambrosius, again, as Tolkien is talking about in some of these later essays that we were reading about in Morgoth's Ring, this is, stuff that comes like a decade later after the publication of The Lord of the Rings. He says that, yes, Sauron was different from Morgoth in that way. And what did Sauron admire about Morgoth? Why did he join Morgoth in the first place? Because he said to himself at one point, young Sauron did, if young is a word you could apply. Early Sauron said to himself, a new power is rising. Against it, the old allies and policies will not avail us at all. There is no hope left in the Valar, right? This, I may join with that power. Power is a resource to get things done. This is what Sauron was interested in. This is what he admired. That is what he worshipped in Melkor. For reason, as a means to ends. Sauron had ends that were different from simply destructiveness. So he was different from Melkor. But Sauron. Tolkien also emphasizes that as Sauron goes along, he degenerates, going down the same path that Morgoth himself went down, and becoming more nihilistic and more tainted with this impulse to destruction, to simple destruction. So he becomes less orderly, in a sense, as time goes down. Good. Ardent Crayon says, does policies have a different connotation in Tolkien's time? Sounds very bureaucratic now. Yeah. In his phrase, where's the line? We may come to control it. Where is it? I'm losing it. Is the word used here? Old allies and policies. There it is. Further up the paragraph. Sorry. Against it, the old allies and policies will not avail us at all. Yeah. He's certainly not using the word in the way that it tends to be used nowadays. Like, this is corporate policy, right? He doesn't mean policy in the sense of a written code of, rules and procedures that guide how we do things around here, right? That's not what he means. A policy, just means, I guess if I had to give a synonym that fits what he's getting at but it is a modern word that I would say maybe plans. The old allies and plans will not avail us at all, or like approaches, basically. He doesn't mean like a codified system of how we do things. We're going to have to throw out the policy manual and write a new one, right? He means our, the way that we've done things, that our approaches, again, it is the same word, as you can see, but it's not, we tend to use that word. That word has kind of, as words so often do, narrowed over time until it, we really tend to only use it in a very sort of, as you say, bureaucratic and kind of legalized way. But yeah, it does have, as Heebie-Jeebie is saying, it's the same word that politics comes from, the plans, approaches, strategies that you take for, ruling and approaching things, basically. So I think that's why it sounds modern to you. It's not a modern word. Policy and even the word politic, like the old politic with a CK at the end, like it would not be politic to do that. Of course, Tolkien uses that word too. Sauruman, indeed, will use that word later on in his speech to Theoden. It's more like that. So no, it's a very old word. It's just that you now have a new and sort of narrower set of associations with. We all do, right, in the modern world. So yeah. Yep. Okay. There we go. Frumius Bujum gives the Oxford, the OED definition, the archaic definition, prudent or expedient conduct or action. There you go. Prudent or expedient conduct or action. Sure, I can get behind that. The course of action that we have been taking, right? Or the courses of action that we have been taking in conjunction with our old allies. Yeah. Yep. Okay, cool. All right, so I didn't get to do two passages. We did one passage, but it's a doozy. You have to admit, this is a big passage, right? This is a very, very important passage. hold this stuff in mind for next week as we return to Sauruman and Gandalf, and we get the third phase of Saruman's approach to Gandalf, right? We had the declamation phase. We had the, how should we say, the kind of insider phase, right? Let me give you the scoop about what's happening, right? There's this power. Think about, forget enemy and simplistic terms. Think about power. And we're going to get the third phase next time. Okay. Yes. So I'm going to, well, let me stop first and say thanks for joining me tonight. We're going to shift over to the field trip. And of course, I'm going to be shutting down the Twitter feed. So those of you who are still with us can feel free to join me at twitch.tv/SignumU. All right. And now, Fourth Dauntless, I will answer your other question. The Dante reading schedule is going up soon. I am finalizing it tonight. My plan is to do no more than 3 cantos a week. That's my goal, 3 cantos a week. I know it's going to sound like a crazy goal to this crowd, but really, that's, I think, what we'll be able to do. Not the first week, though. If we make the first canto in the first week, I'll be fairly pleased. So if you want to be safe, start reading the first 2 cantos of Inferno, because we're starting our discussion of Inferno next week, next Wednesday. First 2 cantos ought to do you for the first week, no question.
Good evening, everybody.
Yeah, good evening. How are you, Valerie?
Doing all right.
Good.
Doing all right. Looking forward to Halloween.
Excellent. Yeah. All right. So.
Well, what's left, you know.
Right.
We're making do. We're making do.
Are you guys trick or treating down there?
No, it's been canceled out here, but we're going to be making goodies and watching what scary movies everyone wants to watch. No one really likes the hardcore stuff except me.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, we actually do have trick-or-treating going on here, with some caution, but we're lucky here in northern New England. We still have the lowest incident rates anywhere, so things are a little looser up here. Right. Yeah, we have been. I don't know what it is like. I don't know. I guess it's just
New York.
I know some
buddies of mine where it's still open. They were figuring out zip lines, like they were doing zip lines from their windows to a tree with a little bucket of candy.
With a little bucket of candy,
like the one slur,
Yeah, no, I'm, there will be, the process will be a little bit different. The candy handoff process will be a little bit different, but anyway, it's. All
right, I'm gonna start inviting fellowship.
All right, very good. Yeah, because we can go from here. So tonight we're gonna finish Angmar tonight. Big deal. We're gonna finish Angmar tonight. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Fine.
So we're going to do the instance.
Okay. Yep, of Carn again. And we have exactly 6 people this time around with 2 bears. That should be awesome.
There we go. We have plenty of bears. Right. So.
Let me launch that. Carn, Jim is where? All right. Okay, going in.
All right. So, of course, we've been discussing, and I'd be interested to hear from folks what they think. We've been discussing, what to do next, because we've been in Angmar for quite some time now.
Oh, yeah.
We took a couple breaks to do other things, like all of Kilondim, didn't we? Like all of Ered Luin was kind of a break in the middle of Angmar. But yeah, so, and we've done Rivendell already, and we're still in Rivendell and shall be still for some time. obviously, we will proceed down and look at the game's depiction of Eregion when we get to Eregion, when we get to the ring goes south in the narrative, but
Yep.
we still have some time before the ring goes south. So we are... however, there's, of course, a great deal of game world which exists that is not part of the linear narrative of the novel, of the story.
That's true.
So we can take, and this is what we've been doing in the, but as we've moved through, we've done most of. I could pause for just a second, look at the map, not that map, this map. We've done. In most of this, we did the Trollshaws, the Lone Lands, Bree, North Downs, Even Dim, Forrichel, Arid Lewin, and the Shire. So we've done, all this stuff. Almost finished with Angmar. Again, the only thing left to continue the discussion of, Eriador here is to go down to Eregion and Enedwaith and Dunland. But I don't want to do Eregion, so we might as well save Enedwaith and Dunland until later. And there will be a great deal of time during, the Two Towers in which we can be looking at Dunland and Enedwaith. We'll see what we can do there. But it does seem, therefore, that it's kind of logical, having completed most of Eriador, to be expanding outwards because, of course, the whole Rovanian area there's now a great deal of game material here, including, of course, the new expansion that was just released in Gundabad. There's a lot of stuff up here, which are around here, I should say, which will give us plenty of stuff to talk about while we're waiting to move along. So that's my thought. Essentially, my thought is that we can, and I think that a really cool place to start would be the Gladden Fields.
Okay.
That would be cool.
Just a sec. I left the kettle on. Hang on.
Oh yeah, no problem. No problem.
Oops.
I barely
remembered.
Had
another half hour.
Yeah. I know. I'm trying to. Even though I started a little bit late, but I'm trying to end on time anyway.
No, it's much appreciated. Thank you.
Try not to punish people for the fact that I was delayed. But anyway, of course, being connected to, we've been talking a lot about the Gladden Fields, obviously, with the provenance of the ring discussion. So it seems a sort of a sensible place to begin our branching out here, and then from there we can kind of wander about until we get back to Eregion at the end.
You guys need to come over the gate before it closes or something.
Oh yeah, sorry. Here
reset.
I should probably do that. Good call.
Now don't go back.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah. Yeah. So that's the
okay. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
And because we did the Misty Mountains too, didn't we? From when we were in Rivendell.
I think we saw. If we did, I'm not sure.
I feel like we did. See, I have a hard time keeping track because, of course, I've done things with Grifflet, and I've done things. I've done a bunch of different kinds of tours, and Misty Mountains are a place I've been a bunch of different times.
Yeah, we did Misty Mountains. I think so.
I think we did. I have a vague memory that we did do that.
It was mostly goblin stuff anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Puntine confirms that we did do the Misty Mountains long ago. I thought we did that after we did Rivendell. Yeah. Okay.
One idea I have, I don't know if anyone, from my 2 cents, it'd be interesting to visit some of these places that were just mentioned in the Council of Elrond.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's still fresh in our memory, that we will not see in further travels, like Mirkwood or the Blue Hills.
Tharbad. Oh, wait.
Or Long Lake.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. Tharbad being the great city that doesn't exist in... come on, guys. How hard is that? I'm such a whiner, right? I mean, so much we've been given, and here I find the one location in all of Eriador that they haven't done. It's just It feels like a hole, right? It feels like a hole in Eriador.
That's where Círdan lives, right? With his
No, and that's where Tharbad is. This it's the crossing of the Grey Flood, where the green, the green. It's where Boromir lost his horse.
That's right. That's
so
right.
I want to go and find the skeleton of Boromir's horse. That's all. So, all right, is this where
No,
we have?
I want to see Círdan in his shipyard.
Oh well, yeah, sure. To get the havens, that would be great. Yeah. Oh no, wait. Yeah, his horse did return riderless, didn't it? His horse didn't die. They just got separated, and his horse went back home. Right. Of course, I was forgetting that line in. Oh, that's right. The named dude with really fancy armor, actually.
Yeah, sees you have made a wrong turn. That's bespoke. That is definitely bespoke armor.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay, so, and we're still no side entrances here, right? Okay, right. These were the ones, right, with the really snug 19th century nooks there on the sides.
Reading nooks, yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, the Tower Hills would be good, I agree. But I don't want to just turn this into a, let's all complain about, the parts of Middle-earth that Lotro hasn't built yet.
Yeah, it's pretty epic.
Because, I mean, look, again, I feel, super ungrateful, and I'd feel a little bit cranky if I were Standing Stone and I were hearing us just complaining about what isn't there. Because there's all this world that I have never even seen yet, or maybe I've run through once, but... I mean, I've never been to the Garden Fields. I've never been there. I've seen the Carrick. I've run through there, and I've run from there to, through Mirkwood. But I've never seen the Garden Fields and stuff. So, anyway, I would love to explore that. But anyway, so yeah, visiting some of the places. Obviously, Minas Tirith is one of the places mentioned, and we'll get there eventually. So there's no need to rush it. All of these doors this is all just still one direction, right? This looks like...
It's definitely hurting us in some place.
Yeah, it's definitely hurting us somewhere. This is where we got, right? This is where we ended?
Yeah.
Before? Okay, so I should start paying attention.
Ooh, atmospheric.
Okay. Oh, more... Hey, wait, did we get here? Because this is where they're hanging from the rafters.
Yeah,
it looks the same as the other one, but it's not. Yeah, we did get through here, right? With more nooks, right? More identical cozy nooks, right? Okay, yeah, we did these with the Merivale, and then we got through, and then we got to the next. It was on the top of the next stairs that we ended, or in the next stairwell, right? Because when it shifts to the orange light, it's all coming back to me now.
It's like there's little chapels on the side.
Yeah, they are almost like little lady chapels or something like that.
Yeah. Like the big ones
except they're so domestic.
Cathedrals. Yeah, it doesn't look reverent. It looks comfy.
Yeah. What's up with the scaffolding here? Were they doing some improvements? It's all broken off.
It did not go well, it would seem.
Yeah. It was almost like, we've got some scaffolding. It doesn't quite fit here. Let's just get the troll to snap it off from the top, and then we can use it. But I don't know for what.
It looks like there was scaffolding, and then it just sort of fell apart later. Like they never bothered to take it down.
Yeah. Oh, look at the design at the bottom of in the bottom of the bowl of the brazier there.
Oh.
Trying to figure out which way it goes.
Oh yeah.
Maybe this way.
Looks a bit like one of those two-tailed sirens.
Yeah, slightly Ouroboros-like, but not quite.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it does look like there's a head which looks sort of like a serpent's head, but instead of it biting the tail of another snake, it looks like a second snake is emerging out of its mouth like a tongue, which is kind of freaky.
Yeah, it's like an Aran, but like...
Yeah.
It's like Alien. It's more like... There we go, it's Xenomorph. We tracked it down. It's Xenomorph sculpture.
Xenomorph sculpture? Okay, there we go. Yeah, interesting.
Also, notice the columns have been completely covered up by metal paneling.
Yeah, and it's the rusty wooden pan. It's the rusty metal paneling.
Might be as old as the scaffolding.
Maybe. Was it reinforced? Exactly. Did they have to they felt like they had to boost up those, because those do seem to be load bearing. They felt like they had to reinforce this when they came back, because it's like from up here you can see like the joint, right?
Yep.
It's kind of dark.
Yeah, the rivets.
Yeah, you can see where it's been riveted in here. It's definitely just kind of maintaining here.
Yeah, but they never took the scaffolding down. They're just like, leave it.
Right. Well, that's just typical, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, the detail work on this wood, which we were looking at last time, is probably old. The wood looks all mottled and old.
Looks very elven.
It does, which is really interesting.
Come to that.
Wait, who's sleeping up there? What is sleeping? Is it? Oh, it's a woman.
Oh, it's one of the spider sorcerers.
Spider sorceresses. Okay. And
oh nope, she brought buddies.
Tons of hillmen. Look at all these
oh
hillmen.
Boy,
my goodness.
It's a jamboree.
It sure is. That is.
How's everybody doing health-wise?
I'm trying to remember when I saw so many ads as that come out all at once. That is. Boy, Wigan would have been so happy right there, but Narnian less so. Okay, so, and there again we can see that, boy, she took a little bit of putting down there.
Yeah, she did.
Anyhow, so once again we can notice the dynamic there. The woman in Angmarim garb, right, the full Angmarim priestess approach, right, says the word, and all of these tribal-looking hillmen come, pouring out of the alcoves there, clearly suggesting that this is a modern corruption, or sort of re-corruption, right, of their culture.
Yep.
That many of them still sort of stick to the old ways, like from a sartorial perspective, right? They still look like the hillmen, but they're now ruled by those among them who have joined with, the new power as it has been re-arising. Got some more.
It does make you wonder about these elder gods over here, whether they were part of the old hillman ways that carried over with the new Angmar ways.
Yeah, and I have to think that the Watchmen are old. Based on the Watchmen plot that we got, in that quest that we had to do.
It was
the
lost
quest.
technology, wasn't it?
Right, lost technology, exactly. So I do think that it's a Witch King thing, ultimately. Even the way in which like evil spirits are being trapped and enforced into this, that's the Witch King all over, right? I mean, that seems to be his technique. Witness the Barrow Downs, right, where we see similar things happening.
Yeah. I think this is a torture room. Maybe.
This one is?
Yeah, it's got straps and knives on it.
Oh, over there. Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, it's like a little torture workbench.
Yeah.
Right, but they're kind of roughing it. I mean, it's. I mean, not that I'm saying they should be performing their torture in a sanitized, operating theater.
Can I get crafting experience for that?
What I'm saying is that these nooks are parallel to the other nice, like Edwardian nooks that we were seeing downstairs. But there's no furnishings. If you don't count the little torture table and the little weapon rack as furniture.
What about this shield
I know.
and the swords here? I haven't seen anything like that.
No, it's very striking.
Even the good guy weapons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even the style of the sword.
And the fact they're still shiny and clean.
Yeah.
And who could wield a shield that big?
It's big. Completely enormous. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
bigger than my bear.
It is. I mean, that
tall.
shield looks like it's about 7 feet tall, from top to bottom.
It's also a Free People's design, mainly because you can craft it and you can get it as a quest drop.
Also, that the double-handed broadsword, that's got to be 8 feet long.
Yes. Yeah.
They're both double-handed. One's got a different hilt on it.
Yeah, one has like no crossguard, which is weird for an
got no
enormous two-handed sword. To
it's
have.
Not very safe.
Right. They come charging at you, and you impale them, and they just keep on coming.
Maybe it's They're supposed to be used more like a lance. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with Ponton about this. Were they crafted for somebody? Are they decoration? I mean, if they were crafted by the Free Peoples, because these are Free People designs, who used them? Why are they here? I don't understand.
They don't look like they belong at all. It almost reminds me of those tales you hear. It's like the reverse story of the cursed painting.
Mm-hmm.
Like they took over this place and, they tried to remove the cursed painting, but it wouldn't come down. It's almost
Right.
like this is the cursed castle.
Right.
It has the good art piece that won't come down.
Yeah. Except I think the bad guys built the castle, right? So, I mean, it wasn't ever a good guy's place. I'm thinking, it seems to me that the best explanation of this, or the one that comes most readily to my mind anyway, is that these are trophies, or these were taken off of good guys.
Except there aren't any in the other chambers here.
No. Okay, you mean nowhere around in this room? Yeah.
We have never seen this in the entire game.
Yeah, I don't recall that either. It's hard to imagine, as you say. So, like, ignoring the fact that there's no good guy who could wield it.
That we know of. How tall do Númenóreans get?
Well, pretty tall. Pretty tall. Elendil was like 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
But at the same time, look, if that were Elendil's personal shield, it would be in a better display case than that, right? I mean, like, Sauron wouldn't have left Elendil's personal shield lying around in a nook in a back corner of of Carn Doom. Oh, look, wait,
Mora and the 50 Hillmen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can't imagine that it could be a Númenor. I mean, that it could be Númenórean is the only. I mean, good guy weapons of enormous size suggests that. I mean, it really does. But so some relic of his ancient foes, which were defeated, seems at least possible. But
I don't know. And OUSs, I don't think they exist.
Yeah, exactly. I really don't know. But I do agree that they certainly do look like, Free People weapons.
Mm-hmm. The fact that they're not just corrupted like everything else here.
Okay. Oh, and now we're in purple. Now, I don't think we're going in rainbow order here, but
we're definitely sticking to the secondary colors.
Yeah.
Which are traditionally evil colors. Like, look at the Joker and,
right.
The Riddler. All those guys use secondary color palettes.
The design. Oh, ooh.
Bum, bum, bum. Oh,
ooh, hang on. Don't kill this guy yet. I want to see him. Okay, so he's wearing gloves. Anything on his? No, very plain cloak. I'm not saying. Oh, come on, that was rude. Just splitting into pieces and flying apart when I was trying to look at your clothing. But I didn't see any designs on it at all. Buddy. I know. Seriously, hold it together, man.
So Gurthul, would that be like a gray spirit then?
Oh.
If a Cargul is a red one and a Nazgul is a black one, would a Gurkhul would be a gray one or a white
ephemeral.
one?
Oh, he is ephemeral, I guess.
I don't speak
around
Arabic,
here.
unfortunately.
I really like the design of those AoE effects.
Boy. Guardians will not be tolerated here.
Guardians? What? It's just like...
Oh, the Guardian must have killed him. Oh, what?
Your champion's blades will be useless. No, so he's doing all these ad hominem speeches?
Yeah, well,
call your captains off if you wish to live. Nice.
He's picking off each of us.
It's mechanics for the event.
Nice.
Yep, it's fun. Nope, Hunter's still gonna shoot.
Oh, okay, here we go. Nothing. Yeah, no. No designs at all, just plain gray. Except those very striking gloves.
Well, the red one's got the beautiful trim on it.
Exactly. That's what I was
looking.
looking for. I was looking at the trim to see if there was anything there.
I wonder if he's lower rank then than a Cargul.
Or it could be higher. I mean, the very plainness of it could indicate.
Oh, we're going back to Saruman's theory of the incorruptible shade.
Well, I'm thinking of.
Whoa.
I'm thinking of distance from humanity, right? Like the Cargul being the first step. So sort of maintaining some of the kind of ideas and affectations, like the Ringwraiths.
Vanity.
Clothing totally optional, right? I mean, like they don't care. Their cloaks are just to give shape to their formlessness when they want to interact with people, in some kind of like non-utterly terrifying way, like the Gaffer or Farmer Maggot, or Bill Ferny.
I do wonder what that would look like, though.
What?
As a robeless Nazgul trying to interact with someone.
Right. Yeah. Like the hissing voice coming from nowhere and the. Yeah. No, it would be. I mean, and plus just the feeling of the presence of the Nazgul. Now, I'm a little concerned. Why is this all glowing red?
Yeah, I don't see a light source.
I mean, when the downstairs ones were glowing orange, it looked like it was just the cozy fire. That's why I've been using the adjective cozy to describe these little nooks in the corners here.
This is decidedly uncozy.
Very. And even though they have a nice Edwardian wardrobe, still, it's not cozy. The, bizarre ambient colored light in Carn Doom is really interesting, because we've got the colored...
Mask of the Red Death. It got the black room with the red light everywhere.
Yeah. And, I mean, so we've got the purple torches, right? But even here you've got the purple torches flanking both inside and out of the alcove, and yet the alcove is not purple. The only light source we see is purple. It's red.
Here's the shield again. It's behind the scaffolding.
Wait, there's another one?
The other torch, in the other torture chamber over here.
Oh, right. Yep, there we go. Okay, so there was a set. So it's
and a cage.
Pale folk cage? No, it's big enough for me. Yeah.
Hobbit cage.
Could be a person cage. I don't know. Humans fit in.
Free person cage.
Yep. Non-Numenorian cage.
Yep.
Okay, so those shields and swords came from a set then.
Yeah.
They could be like Numenorian army gear, slightly exaggerated inside. They might look bigger than they are, hanging up on the wall. But that would seem kind of fitting for them to take old Numenorian war gear, which they don't really mean to reuse, and hang it as trophies around to show like vanquished Numenor.
Oh man, this is like making a fog on the stage.
Yeah, the haze is what I'm looking at here.
Don't breathe it in.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
You almost don't want to go up the stairs through that, do you?
Right, exactly. Gotta hold your breath. And now the ambient light is matching the torches again. We've got now this. I would call it, rather than white, I would call this that's like the classic pale light, right?
Yeah.
And now it's becoming bluish pale again.
Also notice the piles of filth we're getting calf deep on these now.
Yes. Yeah, they are getting deeper. Which is interesting. Like order is almost like breaking down the further and further we get, or like they haven't really bothered to clean it. They've built it up a little bit. Ooh, look. No, I was going to say a choice of ways.
Masters. I feel like it's because the masters don't have any need for things like hygiene.
Hey, we do have a choice of ways. Nope, this is a locked door. I can't open this door. No? Okay.
No, okay.
It's fine. Who needs it? Okay. None of these doors have exits. Do you think the filth on the floor was the source of the ambient light? It almost looked like that because the filth on the floor was fairly luminescent. I mean, it was not blocking the light. It was...
Yeah. I'm sure, like, some of the spiders and stuff with the little glowy bits on them, like, that could make a bioluminescent.
A scenic overview. How thoughtful.
Oh, this is the one we saw in the intro in Galadriel's dream.
Yes.
The guy standing out here.
Except I'm too short. I need a box or something to stand on.
Yeah, I know. Shall I get you something to stand on?
If I do first
Listen
person.
to me,
half of my
Angmarum.
views.
Obey
Locked.
me, and I will give you some cookies.
I'm looking for... Okay, so we can see that... Oh, man, I wish I could look down. Let me get up a little bit. And then...
Get a group shot, but that's about it.
Angle it down. It's hard.
Yeah, I know, right?
Can I jump up? No, not quite. I can't get up on the rail. Okay, I think this is the best I'm going to do.
Yep.
All right.
I dig it. Hang on, let me get a screenshot here.
Okay.
It's hard to go. It's hard to go very far out.
It is. Okay, so there we can see the neighborhoods that we came through. Unfortunately, this does not give us a view of anything we really haven't seen.
Yeah. If we could see that little village by the gate.
Yeah. But the thing that is most clear, that is most striking to me from this vantage point as we're looking out over the whole thing, nowhere in sight, unless it's maybe on that distant cliff over there. But I don't think even there. Nowhere in sight do we see any of the black and white walls that I was expecting, you know? That I was expecting, you know, all along as we've been going through Angmar, I've been expecting that those black and white, you know, those old black and white stripy walls, that's what the walls of Carn Dûm were going to look like. And they don't.
Yeah, like the ones in the southeast on the hill over there.
Right, exactly. I think that is, yes, over there. But we did see those walls in Uragarth. But we haven't seen them anywhere in Carn Dûm. Not after we got we saw them in like the outskirts of Uragarth and sort of the initial suburbs, but certainly once we've crossed the line and gotten closer to the heart of Carn Dûm, we've not seen it anywhere. So that really does seem to me that we therefore almost have to conclude that those old walls predate Old Angmar. That Old Angmar itself found a fortress here, and it wasn't Carn Dûm, it was Uragarth, right? That Uragarth was the original stronghold of whatever, maybe a Númenórean one, right? I mean, one would have to think. I mean, who else would make it? It's not dwarvish architecture. So it would seem to be most likely Arnorian architecture, though it looks very different from the other Arnorian architecture, but still it feels like that conclusion seems forced upon us, that there was an Arnorian stronghold up here, which the Witch King took over when he moved in, and he made that stronghold into Uragarth, and then built his own place here next door in this other newer style.
And the hills and not in the valley surrounded by hills.
Right, which is not a bad idea, really, if you're looking for defenses. But yeah, that... and of course, but it would make sense that the original Arnorians who built the original strongholds weren't necessarily primarily thinking about defenses because, I mean, they built walls, but they weren't worried about being besieged because who was going to besiege them? I mean, you know, there were ornery critters and I don't know how friendly the hillmen were with the Númenóreans. There was always the possibility of, revolt by the locals, but still they wouldn't have had enemies up here, in the years before the Witch King came. So, okay. Is this the end? Is there another?
There was a big old battle. What do you think?
Right, I was kind of expecting a boss fight at some point, but I'm awfully glad we got to the scenic overlook.
Yeah.
Oh, my mini map is getting confused by the multiple levels. Oh wait, here's an openable door, yeah? No.
Oh, yeah, there's a couple here.
Except it's not. Oh. Here we go.
Oh.
Sort of. It's an anteroom. Hooray! An antechamber.
Uh-oh. More out here.
Oh.
Maybe we have to kill all these guys and then we can go in the central one.
I don't remember seeing them in like plate mail before.
Huh. Yeah, I like the little cowls as well.
Yeah.
Bats.
Nope, bats, okay. Lots of bats. So these are just antechambers full of enemies. Oh, look at this. Oh, it's a chorus line. Holy cow. An evil chorus line. My goodness. That was intimidating.
Yeah.
Okay. It did look Robert Palmer-esque. Stun Duck. They could have been in a particularly evil Robert Palmer video. Oh, a Cargul. There was a Cargul with the fancy robes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now, here we go.
Here's the big one. Oh, look at the window.
The
seat of the Witch King. I've never seen this in my life. Okay.
That's beautiful.
First, the draperies. Would you look at the draperies? We have covered the entire walls with blood red draperies, which are textured. Look at that. They're woven into this, like, they've got that vine thing. I thought it was just like, water stains, but no, it's a design, like a spiky bramble vine.
Yeah. Brocade, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man.
Evil brocade.
Evil brocade. No question.
But it does seem that these guys are not removed from humanity as much as we might think. This is a very vain and beautifully decorated throne room.
Yeah, it really is. And the crown is upside down. Have we ever seen the crown upside down like that?
Is it a crown?
Well, it's like the Iron Crown.
No.
But it's also...
It's mimicking the design at the other end.
Right. It's also like the eye, but it's not the eye. It doesn't have the cat slit there. It is like sun rays. It's like the eye, sort of like the eye, and then acting like the sun and shining out. And yet, it's almost the obverse. No, obverse isn't quite the right word. It's almost just the reverse of the Iron Crown.
Yeah, it directly mirrors the one in the window.
Of course, the other thing that it directly mimics is the Númenórean star with the beam shining down, right?
Oh yeah, with the beam going down like that.
Check out the
floor tiles. Just what Catriona was saying, a parody of the Númenórean star. Yeah. Look at the who?
The floor tiles.
The floor tiles.
Oh.
There's your Iron Crown.
Right.
Yeah.
And quadruplicate.
The donut of death.
The Iron Crown everywhere. Facing in every direction.
Notice the gold embellishments on the pillars look a lot like those little orange wedges we've seen.
They do. Yes, I agree. That does look like an adaptation of that stylistic motif from the Hillman.
And the pillars are hollow.
Is that a kind of that a kind of cultural appropriation on the part of the Witch King, you think?
Bread and circuses, maybe.
Well, just thinking.
I put your orange god in my temple.
Right, exactly.
Look how nice I am.
Yeah, see, it's decorated with it's like your little orange sections, but bigger and better. And in
longer.
service of me, and made of gold, and cooler than yours.
Is this open to the air? Because I'm not seeing windows up here, but I see the sky.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Look at that. It's like an old mead hall.
That's
like what this looks like.
Elrond's joint.
Elrond meets Meduseld.
Yeah.
Because it's got that upside down ship kind of look.
Yes. Yeah, with the vaulting. wooden vaulting, which is interesting.
Yeah, wooden vault with gold accents on it that look like wolves' heads and bat wings and all sorts of lovely Tim Burton-y things.
Yeah, yeah. And then you've got the statues. Now, I'm thinking that these statues, would they have been... Now, the visual of the statues holding the brazier with the multicolor flames, you see they're like rainbow color flames coming out of there. The rainbow flames emerging from the braziers being held, it's almost like... Again, these statues were the prisons of these spirits, these evil spirits, the water spirits, but they, it's almost like they're like the flames represent those spirits that are being held, by the statues. But hang on a second, hold the phone. These statues have faces, don't they?
Oh yeah.
Noses and mouths and eyes. That's a human face. Surrounded by the horns?
As much as any of the Watchers had a face.
No. I think like actual human face. Am I making it up? Is it just an illusion from where I'm standing? Maybe it is.
It looks a lot like the ones I saw, that sort of baddish, wrinklish, alien-looking thing.
You see what I'm seeing from here? It looks like an eye and a nose and a mouth. There it looks like a profile of a face, but actually, when I come closer, it is not so.
It's more like a mandrill snout.
Yes, it's just the patterning, which from the side looks like a face. Wow, I wonder if that's deliberate, because that's
like a face rock.
That is a startling visual effect. From here, it looks like a face.
Huh?
Yeah,
the braziers
right
that are
there.
holding have a design on them.
It looks like it has a face with horns, and then you come close, and it's like, no, it's not a face. It's a gaping maw. It's just the inside.
Yeah, it's like a. It's like a butterfly trick in reverse.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Or anglerfish. That's interesting design on the bowl. I almost see like arrows and swords and stuff.
It looks almost like the design, those palm frond designs that look like the orange slices.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same, but it's almost like that.
Almost.
Similar to it anyway.
It did make me wonder. You mentioned the spirits and the lamps and stuff like that. It's like, is this the new clean source of energy, but it's creating this weird spiritual pollution?
Right. Oh, you mean in the sky? Yeah.
Yeah. Just like the lich factories.
So, also, I have to admit that I'm slightly disturbed about the fact that these, like, hideous, only vaguely semi-humanoid statues, which have no legs, arms which end in fingers 6 feet long, and no faces but a gaping maw, also have nipples. I think I've noticed this before, but it's disturbing every time I notice it.
No, that is disturbing. I agree.
Honestly, the first time I saw it, I thought it was ladies, and I'm like, whoa, Standing Stone got away with that?
Right. No, I think those are boy nipples, but still.
Just nipples, guys.
But still, nipples.
It makes it too mammalian. It does make it way too mammalian.
Yes, just like the whole association with the mammalian situation is
like if it had if it had 2 rows of 3, that would have been less disturbing somehow than having them. These are distinctly primate.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
Could it be along the lines of, can't create but can only make a mockery of whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Just like nipples.
Evidence that they still retain.
We have been here before, by the way.
I have been here before?
Long time ago.
Yeah,
I think a long time ago.
When?
Look who's up on the throne.
It's Morgoth. Yeah. Do you stand here in the epic line?
This is where you fight Morgoth with Guladir, and Ser Okar makes off with the Palantir from here.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
He's been waiting for us.
Somebody stood in the Wheel of Death. Oh, and it looks like an eye on the floor. Look at that.
It does.
Yeah. Notice that the rays from the eye are pointing towards the throne. Okay.
Uh-huh.
You
hang
might
on.
want to stand on the throne and we'll take care of him for
Looking
you.
on your backside there. No. Okay.
Oh. Okay.
All right, I'm gonna look at the throne. Hey, look, he's got a little she throne. It's a little
Yep,
his and
that's
hers.
for what's her face?
What's her face? Yeah, Sarah
Yeah.
Oakheart.
Yeah. Narmalus, other son.
No, yeah, not the non-Narmoth.
The new red maid.
Yeah, the redder maid.
So is the curtains just covering up
Amarthiel.
areas that are exposed? Like, is this just like an open? The entire thing is open air, and then like the curtains are just plugging up the holes, so the whole thing doesn't fall off.
So it's
the top.
actually like a giant tent.
Yeah.
Okay, see now the crown looks like a crown. It's right side up over here.
Yeah. That's the one. That was the window we saw coming in as well.
Yeah, exactly. Right. JJ says, are they just construction canvases? Right? Now, we're going to put up a wall here, but for now, we're just going to stretch this tarpaulin across it and,
Little sign in black speech saying, "Pardon our dust."
Yeah.
We're making magic.
Oh, hey, that's rude. I'm just looking at the architecture. You have to come up here and attack me.
Not thought it possible. Oh, it possible.
Where'd he go?
Oh,
Now we've got
Gi-
giants.
phantom giants. Yeah.
Phantom giants. Okay. But
Another good band name.
Oh, hey. So his armor is very like the armor of the fancy trolls, except it's got the eye on it.
Up.
Oh, darn it, I missed it. He was on his back and I was trying to reorient to see. I don't remember killing him 150 separate times like this, but then again, it's been a long time.
Well, the thing is, we're not actually killing him. We're just killing shadows.
Right. See, look at the eye. Look at the eye. Look at the rays from the top of the eye. Oh, darn it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, the floor's all glowy.
I wish he would monologue a little bit longer.
Yeah. Not even going to tell us your dastardly plan? Come on, man.
Oh, man, I want to see the eye effect on the floor, right? With the
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. See, you've got the sun rays. It's definitely doing a sunshine thing, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Um,
Here comes the sun.
creating this association between the Witch King and the sun, which is really interesting because, of course, not only because through the Minas Ithil connection, you know, he's more associated with the moon traditionally, but just thinking about the way in which he's kind of, I mean, it's almost like, again, a kind of appropriation, right? He's trying to appropriate the power of the sun itself, which was, you know, of course, very intimidating to the servants of Melkor.
Or mock what he couldn't create.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Sauron doesn't lay claim to the sun, so it's interesting that the Witch King is kind of setting up in that way here. And with the downward rays, I assume that this is oriented to be the bottom facing here, so that when you're sitting on the throne and looking out, it's like the design is pointed towards you. And so the rays of and certainly the way that the rays emerge from the eye, and I love the effect of the cat slit on the eye there, so it really does look like the eye of Sauron there in the middle, whose rays are, you know, radiating out towards, you know, the Witch King as he sits here, or of course Mordorith as he sits here. But then it gets reversed above the throne, where now the rays, which are like the rays of the sun again, but also clearly, much more clearly like a crown hovering above the throne, now it looks like the sun is radiating out, and it's not explicitly the eye. We don't have we don't get an iris and pupil or anything representing the pupil in the middle of that eye. It's just an open eye shape. And again, the beams are not now shining down from the eye towards the ruler, but outwards from the ruler.
Yeah.
I'm curious why the main sunbeam that we first saw is shining on the Palantir's holder down here in the corner. And why is it down here and not like up there by the throne?
Wait, which one is the holder for is the Palantir?
Down here by the exit.
Oh, this one is?
Yeah, that's where the Palantir was.
Yeah, right. Vague memories of this. Okay, so that's a little Palantir pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a cistern.
Yeah. I would
Does
think
make
you
you
would
think
want
of
to
Palantirs
pad
could be
those
much-
things a little bit. It'd be a little scratchy.
Yeah. Does it hover? Is it like have its own hover power or something like that?
Yeah, I suppose so. That would make sense.
It probably sits on top of those 4 projections. It's not like a gem in a setting,
There we go.
but it's actually sitting on top of it, I imagine. I don't actually recall.
Yeah, it's definitely got some floaty power if it's doing that.
Is that is that Palantir that you're holding life-sized?
I think so. I mean, I brought it out so we could compare scale, actually.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, it's a little small. I think it must hover.
Yeah.
Corduroy. Yeah. Okay.
Anniversary gift.
Right on.
Yep.
Okay. I like the theory that there are no walls behind the brocade there. I like that a lot. Well, I approve of the Witch King's throne room. This is very interesting. And notice again the rusty brown ramp, like so many of the rusty brown ramps that we've seen.
Yeah. But it looks nice here. It matches the gold and the bronze and the red.
The setting off rusty metal with gold is kind of daring, you know, like that's kind of a fun combination.
Yeah, that's trash money right there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, cool. All right.
Very punk.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like punk. This is like Trent Reznor's Millionaire Palace, kind of.
Yeah.
Rusty metal and gold.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. All right. Well, I should let folks go. It's despite starting on time, we've gone late. But we got through Angmar. We had our goal here tonight. So we've finished Carn Doom. We finished all of Angmar. Next week, let's cross the Misty Mountains and head off. We'll figure out how to do it. And we'll head off towards the west. Let's head towards the Gladden Fields, and then we can go from the Gladden Fields to other places. If we think of other places in the game that we could visit from that have come up in the council, we can plan those then. And otherwise, we'll just kind of explore around the region up through, Wilderland and Northern Mirkwood and stuff, and see what we can see. So, yeah, Gladden Fields is like level 120. Yep, absolutely. I'm totally going to need protecting, or the fauna is going to destroy me. But that'll be part of the fun. So
Just a bit.
it'll be good. Get to go see Ross Goebel. I don't think I've ever seen Ross Goebel, so that'll be good. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you guys back again next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks for joining me on this epic exploration of The Lord of the Rings and of Standing Stone's video adaptation of Tolkien's story. If you are having even half the fun I'm having on this journey, I hope you will consider supporting the project by donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.